There are moments in life when the world divides itself into two kinds of people: those who laugh from behind glass walls and those who walk straight through the fire without flinching. This story is not about the ones behind the glass. It's about a man who came with nothing but a battered toolbox, oil-stained hands, and a lifetime of grit. A man who didn't need polished shoes or perfect words to change everything. And it's about a woman, a queen in heels, who had everything the world said should make her happy, until she realized what she needed most wasn't found in fortune or fame, it was found in truth. And it all started with a dusty old pickup truck and a heartbeat away from disaster. People laughed when a dusty old pickup rumbled onto the gleaming private tarmac. Out stepped Logan Hart, a grease-stained mechanic with oil-smudged boots and a battered toolbox. He had been called to fix a billionaire's crippled private jet, but no one actually expected him to touch it, let alone repair it. Behind towering glass windows, executives in tailored suits chuckled and pointed their laughter muffled but cruel. Only one figure didn't join in. Sienna Rhodes, the jet's breathtaking owner and the heir to one of the world's largest fortunes, stood apart. Her arms crossed, her sharp eyes watching Logan with a curious stillness. Minutes later, just as the jeering reached its peak, Sienna would step onto the tarmac herself. In her designer heels and flawless poise, she would walk straight toward the mechanic everyone had dismissed and stop everything. And then she would ask one question that would silence the laughter, shake the world, and change Logan's life forever. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring you more powerful stories. Now let's dive in. People laughed when a dusty old pickup rattled onto the pristine tarmac. Out stepped Logan Hart, a grease-stained mechanic in a worn-out flannel with calloused hands and boots, stained by years of honest work. He had been called to fix a billionaire's grounded private jet, but no one truly believed he would touch it, let alone repair it. From behind the towering glass of the terminal, polished executives in tailored navy suits and glossy shoes sneered openly. Their laughter, though muted by the thick windows, carried an unmistakable cruelty. Only one person didn't join them: Sienna Rhodes. The jet's stunning owner and heiress to one of the world's greatest fortunes stood apart. Her arms folded, her sharp gaze fixed in silence on the stranger below. In a few minutes, Sienna would step onto the runway herself. She would stop everything, and she would ask one question, a question so shocking it would silence the laughter and change everything. It was 6:47 a.m. when Logan arrived at Clearwater International Airport. The sky was still bruised purple and gold from a reluctant dawn. The early morning wind bit through his thin jacket. Every step he took across the tarmac, crunching gravel beneath heavy boots, echoed louder than the distant roar of jet engines. He had received the emergency call just before sunrise. Jet failure urgent. No details, no context, only an address and the promise of fast pay. In the distance, the private jet loomed like a silver beast, majestic and wounded. Clusters of well-dressed men huddled around it, sipping coffee from gleaming paper cups, their conversations punctuated by smug laughter. One executive leaned toward another, whispered something behind a manicured hand, and both burst into mocking chuckles. Logan said nothing. He had seen their type before: men brilliant in boardrooms, but helpless when faced with a machine bleeding from the inside out. He knew what mattered: the aircraft and the lives it carried. Wordlessly, he dropped his battered toolbox beside the jet, knelt down, and pried open the engine panel. Then he froze. What he saw nearly made his breath catch. The fuel line critical to the plane's lifeblood was cracked, no melted. The insulation had disintegrated into ash. The clamp that should have held everything secure was eaten away by corrosion. And a fuel leak. A thin, deadly thread of gasoline had crept dangerously close to the ignition coil. One spark, one mistake, and the jet would become a fireball. Whoever had touched this engine last should have been banned from aviation. One spark, and the jet would have exploded midair. Logan knew he had minutes, not hours. No backup, no assistant, no time to explain. Rolling up his sleeves, he got to work, his hands moving with the precision of a man who had spent his life fixing engines in barns, on highways, and under the blistering Carolina sun. The airport staff gawked. A few even pulled out of their phones, recording videos, snickering behind their lattes. Logan could feel their judgment heavy and scalding against his back, but he never flinched, never hesitated. The machine came first inside the gleaming terminal. Sienna Rhodes watched everything. She said nothing as her staff whispered and chuckled around her. She was used to the noise, the shallow judgments. Sienna wasn't just a CEO. She was aviation royalty. Her father had built Rhodes Skyche from nothing, and Sienna had turned it into an empire. She knew jets. She had flown them, built them, raced them, and what she saw outside stunned her. She leaned closer to the glass, narrowing her eyes. Who was this man with oil-slicked hands and torn jeans who moved with the grace of a seasoned surgeon? Why was he the only one who saw what her trained pilots had missed? Then it happened. The jet's lights flickered. A low, steady hum pulsed through the fuselage like a heartbeat. The machine was alive again. Her breath caught. Slowly, almost involuntarily, Sienna rose to her feet, her eyes never leaving the man outside. Everyone else still saw a mechanic. She saw something else entirely. And in less than a few minutes, she would walk down that runway and change both their lives forever. The moment the jet roared back to life, the laughter behind the glass died. Executives froze mid-sip, their smug smiles sliding into stunned silence. One of them whispered under his breath, disbelief thick in his voice. That should have taken hours. But Logan wasn't looking for applause. He wasn't there for a show. He closed the engine panel with a dull clang, wiped his hands on an old rag, slung his battered tool bag over one shoulder, and turned to walk away. No celebration, no gloating. Just the quiet dignity of a man who knew his worth, even if no one else did. Then the private jet's door creaked open. The stairs unfolded, each metallic click, slicing through the heavy silent air like a drumbeat. A pair of sleek black heels touched the top step sharp. Commanding Sienna Rhodes descended. Every movement was deliberate, the walk of a woman born into power, but there was something different in her eyes. This wasn't the gaze of someone used to taking. It was something sharper, more intentional, unshakable. She wasn't walking toward an employee. She was walking toward a reckoning. Logan stopped mid-step when he saw her coming toward him. She was dressed in a sharp navy suit with gold buttons, her hair tied back, her stride confident and unyielding. Every step she took made the men in suits behind her shift uncomfortably. She walked right past them, past the silent engineers, past the airport staff who had been laughing just minutes ago. She walked straight toward the man covered in grease, and for a moment the entire world seemed to hold its breath. "You fixed it," she said quietly. Logan blinked. "Yes, ma'am." "No," she corrected softly, her voice a low hum against the wind. "You saved it. My pilot told me the engine was compromised beyond repair. Said we would need to ground it for a week." "He missed a melted fuel line," Logan said calmly, brushing dust off his worn shirt. "It was nearly touching the ignition coil." Her eyes narrowed not in anger but in realization. "You could have walked away," she murmured. "I don't walk away from fire hazards." A beat of silence, then a smile. Not the kind worn for boardrooms or press conferences, but something real raw and startlingly honest. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Sienna Rhodes." Rhodes Skyche. "You don't seem impressed." "I'm not here to be impressed," Logan said simply. "I'm here to fix problems." Sienna studied him for a long moment, something unspoken flickering in her eyes. Then she turned on her heel and faced her staff. Everyone inside now. No one dared argue. The terminal doors clicked shut behind them, leaving just the two of them, standing alone on the vast tarmac. "I have spent my entire life surrounded by men who talk big and do little." Sienna said, her voice softer now. "You are the first one who did the opposite." Logan gave a small nod. "I was just doing my job." Sienna drew a deep breath, the kind you take before jumping off a cliff. Then she stepped closer. "If someone like me asked you something completely insane," she said slowly, "what would you do?" Logan didn't move. "That depends," he said evenly. "How insane? What if I asked you?" She hesitated, "To marry me." For a heartbeat, the runway went still. The wind whispered across the empty expanse. A bird lifted off from a nearby pole, slicing the air in a single wing beat. And Logan, standing there in torn jeans, boots, stained with fuel, fingers blackened with grease, did not laugh, did not flinch. He simply looked at her, really looked, as if trying to read the truth beneath her flawless exterior. Most men would have stumbled over their words, cracked a joke, or doubted what they heard. But not Logan. He had spent a lifetime fixing things others abandoned. He knew the difference between noise and meaning. And this was not noise. Sienna stood motionless, her breath unsteady, as if the words had shocked even herself. She was not a woman used to waiting, but she waited now, praying he wouldn't treat her like a headline. Logan wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "You don't even know me," he said. "That's why I'm asking," she replied. He raised an eyebrow. Come again. Sienna stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply on the concrete like a ticking clock. I've been proposed to 23 times, she said, her voice trembling, just slightly. By men who memorized my net worth and mistook it for love. But you, she paused, swallowing hard. You walked into a nightmare, saved my jet, risked your life, and asked for nothing. I didn't do it for you, Logan said. I did it because someone had to. Exactly, she whispered. That's what makes it real. Logan looked down, suddenly conscious of the dirt on his hands, the frayed edges of his shirt. You want to marry a mechanic? He asked. No. I want to marry the only man here who didn't try to impress me. Behind them, the terminal lights glowed like stars waking up at dusk. Some curious eyes pressed against the glass. Phones likely filmed whispers already spreading like wildfire. Sienna didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't performing. She was simply being. Logan finally broke the silence. You serious? As a heart attack. He studied her, not the clothes, not the title, but the soul. Then he spoke. Take off your heels. Sienna blinked. What? If you're serious, Logan said evenly, take off your shoes, walk with me. 5 minutes, no titles, no headlines, just two people on the same ground. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then without a word, she leaned onto one foot, kicked off one heel, then the other, barefoot on the hot concrete. Sienna Rhodes aviation queen billionaire heiress followed a grease-stained mechanic into the sunset. They walked past the jet, past the terminal filled with silent onlookers, past all the noise. Just two souls on the same ground. Finally, she didn't ask where they were going. She only matched his pace step for step. Logan led her to the far edge of the airfield where old hangars stood like forgotten giants. He pulled open a rusted metal door and gestured for her to enter. Inside was not what she expected. There were no machines, no engines, just a small folding table, a battered chair and walls lined with old photographs, planes, mechanics, and one little boy in overalls standing beside a man who looked just like Logan, only older, smiling wide. My father built his life fixing engines, Logan said quietly, his voice thick with memory. I watched him fix planes that others said were too far gone. When he died, I inherited this hangar. I kept the lights off because dreams don't run on electricity, they run on grit. Sienna turned slowly, taking it all in. Every man you've met, Logan continued, wanted your empire. I don't care about that. But if you're offering something real, he looked her square in the eyes. Don't expect champagne and fireworks. Expect scraped knuckles, midnight repairs, and meals eaten off toolboxes. Sienna's smile bloomed slow, genuine, radiant. That sounds perfect, she whispered. For the first time, Logan smiled back, not because he was charmed, but because he believed her. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the rusted doors. But inside the hangar, everything felt still timeless. The following morning, sunlight spilled through the cracked windows like liquid gold. Sienna sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, wearing Logan's oversized flannel shirt, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. Her designer dress lay folded neatly beside her. Almost forgotten. In that moment, she looked nothing like a billionaire, just a woman who had finally exhaled. Logan sat across from her, a wrench in hand, quietly working. You really stayed, he said without looking up. I said I would, Sienna answered. Most people would have called a driver, found the nearest five-star suite, he teased. I already know what 5 stars feel like, Sienna said, smiling softly. I wanted to see what 500 a.m. with you felt like. Logan chuckled. It's loud. It smells like grease, and it starts with cold coffee and colder feet. Sienna raised her mug in a mock toast. To cold feet. She grinned. But outside the hangar, the world had not paused. News was spreading like wildfire, a billionaire missing. A grounded jet leaked security footage. Her name was trending, but no one knew where she was. Not even her inner circle. Rumors grew wilder by the hour. Someone had seen her barefoot on a tarmac, walking beside a man in oil-stained jeans. At Rhodes Aviation's boardroom, chaos reigned. Wesley Pennington, her longtime advisor, slammed a hand on the table. This is unacceptable. We have journalists camped outside, shareholders panicking. The board's calling emergency meetings. A younger executive leaned in nervously. Sir, what if she's choosing love? Wesley scoffed. She's a Rhodes Rhodess. Don't chase love. They build legacies. But one woman, Sienna's godmother, Margot, said nothing. She sipped her tea, slowly hiding a rare knowing smile. Because Margot remembered. She remembered birthdays spent alone, laughter, rehearsed for cameras, smiles that never quite reached Sienna's eyes. And now, for the first time in years, Sienna was off script, back at the airfield. Sienna and Logan worked side by side, restoring an old Cessna. No talks of companies, no headlines. Only grease-streaked banter and stolen glances. Sienna's hands, once used for signing billion-dollar contracts, were now stained with oil, and she loved it. But by late afternoon, a black SUV appeared at the gate. Logan's body stiffened instinctively. Sienna stood up, wiping her hands on a rag. She recognized the driver immediately, Wesley. He stepped out, all courtroom polish and tight control. "Miss Rhodes," he said stiffly, "I'm relieved to see you are well." "Wesley," Sienna replied, cool and composed. "What brings you here?" "You have the world panicking. Your jet missed departure. The media is spiraling. I'm here to escort you back to your reality." She smiled, polite but sharp as a blade. "You mean your version of it?" Wesley's eyes flicked to Logan, dismissive. "And who is he?" Logan stepped forward, unbothered. "Just the guy who kept her jet from blowing up." Wesley gave a tight, insincere laugh. "Right. And now you think that qualifies you to stand next to her?" Sienna's voice dropped, calm but cutting. "I don't need qualifications to choose who I stand next to." Wesley pressed harder. "There are investors watching Sienna appearances to maintain you are a Rhodes." "No," she said, stepping closer, her voice steady and clear. "I am Sienna, and for the first time I'm going to live like it." Wesley opened his mouth to argue and closed it again. Sienna turned to Logan. "Come with me," she said. "Where to?" he asked. "To show the world I'm not ashamed of the only person who saw me before the brand." Logan hesitated but then nodded once. She reached for his hand, and this time he took it. The hangar doors swung wide, the cameras outside clicked like firecrackers. But Sienna Rhodes didn't flinch. No makeup, no diamonds, just oil-stained hands and truth. They stepped into the sunlight together, and the world gasped. Reporters yelled, flashes blinded, but Sienna didn't care. Not anymore. The only thing that mattered was the man walking beside her. The man who had seen her for who she truly was, behind tinted windows. Wesley watched, a cocktail of disbelief and rage twisting in his chest. All the careful plans, the empire they had built, slipping away. But Sienna didn't glance back. She had spent her life building a future that wasn't hers. And now, finally, she was building one that was. As they reached the jet, Logan asked quietly, "Are you sure about this?" Sienna smiled, soft, real, unshakable. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The jet gleamed under the afternoon sun, a symbol not of her old life, but of the limitless one ahead. They boarded, the doors closed behind them with a heavy, satisfying finality. The world outside, the investors, the boardrooms, the expectations would have to wait. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's voice crackled through the intercom. "Where to, Miss Rhodes?" Sienna glanced at Logan, then back at the endless horizon unfolding beyond the windshield. "Wherever life takes us," she said, her voice steady and firm. Logan's hand found hers, rough, calloused, real. And as the jet roared down the runway, lifting into the vast open sky, Sienna knew. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The greatest adventure either of them could ever imagine, and they were ready for it. Together.